Ladies and gentlemen, esteemed colleagues and fellow scholars of the Imperium, today I have the privilege of delving into the world of the Bene Gesserit, an order who has influenced key events throughout our galactic history. As we embark on this exploration, we delve into the annals of an institution that has, for millennia, been a pivotal force in shaping the political power and genetic tapestry of our great houses, and much, much more. Our journey begins in the ancient corridors of Terran history, tracing the evolution of the Sisterhood from their mystical and obscure origins to their ascendance as one of the most formidable powers in the known universe. Join me as we traverse the history of this fearsome and mysterious sect, seeking to understand the motivations and machinations of an order that has, in its quest for power and knowledge, shaped the destiny of our Imperium. Please sit and listen closely. The Order, with its roots tracing back to Terran prehistory, has a rich history of great interest to those educated in its institutions. Originating from the central plains of a major terrestrial landmass, this group migrated east and south on Old Earth, traversing areas known historically as Harappa and Mesopotamia. During these extensive migrations, they developed a genetic predisposition for a collective consciousness within their familial structures. Over the millennia, a significant shift occurred. While the group consciousness trait persisted, males began to lose their active capabilities in this regard, retaining only latent genetic markers for the trait. Anthropolinguist Mauro Gapato from the University of Paquita has postulated that this loss of active group consciousness in males resulted from psychological repression. This theory is underpinned by observations that the dominant trait was suppressed due to its practical disadvantages in warfare and survival scenarios. Males, as the primary protectors within the culture, faced detrimental effects in combat situations if they were acutely empathetic to the pain and suffering of their peers. This evolutionary and cultural shift marked a pivotal point in the history of the Bene Gesserit, leading to a society where women predominantly carried and developed the capabilities for collective consciousness and other traits that would define the Bene Gesserit's powerful and secretive order. As the prevalence of active group consciousness dwindled among women, the familial groups began to institutionalize their unique cognitive abilities through rituals, traditions, and the formation of religious constructs, aiming to preserve the essence of this collective awareness. Over time, however, a significant challenge emerged. These active females could only access and retain the memories of their female predecessors, leading to an incomplete transmission of the family's historical and collective consciousness. This limitation sparked an aspiration within the society to cultivate an active male lineage to restore the full spectrum of familial memory and consciousness. The objective was to bridge the collective memory gap, enriching their shared historical and cognitive experience. These women wielded considerable influence, orchestrating their society through the edifice of mother-goddess religions. These religious structures facilitated a controlled breeding program to revive the active trait in males. They supported a comprehensive system of mnemonic record-keeping. Additionally, they established an elaborate training and indoctrination regimen for the active females, ensuring the continuity and dominance of their cultural and genetic legacy. Through these mechanisms, the precursors to the Bene Gesserit order sought to maintain and enhance their profound connection to collective memory and consciousness. The breeding and training programs central to developing group consciousness were tightly coupled into the primary religio-political structures. These programs expanded their influence through tribal migrations and interracial marriages, eventually extending their dominance across 2 continents. The nuanced understanding of life and death within this culture is evidenced by a hypothesis that resonates within Bene Gesserit philosophy. Do not count a human dead until you've seen the body, and even then, you can make a mistake. This saying underscores the group's perception of death, entwined with their belief in a form of universal consciousness sustained through memory transfer. This concept subtly permeated Terran mythologies, influencing notions of demonic possession and reincarnation. This belief system emphasizes consciousness and collective memory, underpinning the evolving religious and cultural paradigms. It reflects a deep-seated conviction in the endurance of the self through successive generations. This core tenet would eventually shape the spiritual and philosophical foundations of the order, imbuing it with a rich, complex heritage of knowledge, memory, and power that transcended individual mortality. The gene carriers, vital to perpetuating group consciousness and memory, were trained within tribal frameworks. These tribal units, however, were overseen by a superior intertribal council known as the Mothers. This arrangement ensured that the specialized knowledge and capabilities related to collective consciousness were meticulously cultivated and managed across different tribal societies. At the tribal level, a preeminent gene carrier was appointed as the Great Mother, a position of considerable influence and responsibility. She represented her tribe in the intertribal council while maintaining authority within her local community. The title of Mother, often hereditary, signified genetic lineage and a role imbued with cultural and spiritual significance. In societies where matriarchal systems prevailed, the role and title of mother were openly acknowledged and integrated into the social fabric. However, in patriarchal societies, the mothers transformed into a clandestine organization. They wielded their influence from the shadows, typically marrying into the aristocracy to secure their positions and ensure the continuity of their lineage and knowledge. The Great Mother in these settings was often the spouse or mother of the tribal leader, positioning her at the nexus of tribal authority and the secretive network of the Mothers. This dual structure of overt matriarchal authority and covert influence within patriarchal systems allowed the mothers to maintain a steady undercurrent of power and continuity for their traditions and genetic legacy, laying the groundwork for what would evolve into the sophisticated and enigmatic order of the Bene Gesserit. Among the mothers, only a select few, referred to as Sibyls, possessed the profound capabilities of group consciousness, tribal memories, and in some instances, a form of limited prescience. These Sibyls were pivotal figures within their society, perceived as channels through which divine wisdom, or the gods, communicated with the broader culture. They formed a network that interconnected the major political entities across the regions north and south of the Great Sea of ancient Terra, thereby wielding significant influence and facilitating wider tribal cohesion and governance. One of the recorders of this ancient lore, Voice Euanthes, detailed the intricate memory transference techniques employed by the mothers. However, this knowledge's sensitivity and potential power led to its sequestration by the Order, which restricted access to these details, deeming them too sensitive for public or academic dissemination. The retained portions of Euanthes' recordings, nonetheless, include descriptions of ritualistic practices, among them the concept of a mate savior. While the specifics of this role or practice are not fully disclosed, it hints at a complex system of beliefs and rituals, central to maintaining and propagating the group consciousness and the political religious order of the mothers. Within the various tribes, the concept of a savior became a central element of the mothers' teachings and aspirations, envisioned as a heroic figure capable of shortening the way towards liberation from various forms of existential silence or bondage. This figure of redemption was seen as a key to achieving rebirth or rejuvenation, with the specific narrative varying to fit the cultural and mythological context of each tribe. The envisaged male savior served dual purposes. He was a protector of pregnant women, ensuring their safety regardless of their origins or peculiarities, and he acted as a symbol of a golden age, evoking nostalgia for a time of superior communal consciousness and harmony. This longing for a savior was a cultural artifact and a strategic desire within the Mother's Order. It reflected their yearning for a figure to navigate and perhaps foresee the future, enhancing their influence and control. In the traditions of some southern tribes, this savior figure was referred to as Hadarak, a term signifying endurance or perpetual existence. Anthropolinguist Maro Gapato draws a parallel between this term and the Bene Gesserit's concept of the Kwisatz Haderach, indicating a deep-rooted historical connection. The involvement of the Bene Gesserit in the origins and execution of the Butlerian Jihad has been a topic of scholarly debate. Yet, evidence from the Rakis horde has confirmed the significant role played by Jehane Butler, a member of the Bene Gesserit of hidden rank. Her leadership and instigation efforts in the early stages of the Butlerian Jihad are now recognized as pivotal. With the advent of space exploration, when humanity physically breached the celestial once deemed the exclusive realm of deities, a significant ideological shift occurred. The collision of mythic beliefs with advancing human technological achievements created a cultural and cognitive dissonance. The Bene Gesserit, adept in navigating such transitional epochs, leveraged this shift. They championed the value of intuitive reasoning over the purely empirical, data-driven approach that characterized the technological ascendancy of the time. The Bene Gesserit missionaries' strategic promotion of intuitive thought processes was not merely a cultural intervention, but a calculated move to preserve and enhance their influence amidst the rising tensions and challenges of the pre-jihad era. The tension between rational, empirical thinking and the intuitive humanistic approach did not dissipate quickly, but persisted into the colonization period. As new worlds were settled and integrated into an expansive inter-world trade federation, a shift in power dynamics occurred. The technocrats, representing the interests and ideologies of technology-driven governance, began to assert dominance over the humanistic elements, those factions valuing intuition and emotion as essential components of human experience. This ascendancy of technocratic control was facilitated mainly by the central role of thought machines in managing the economies of these burgeoning colonial worlds. As these machines took on increasingly vital functions in societal management and economic operation, the populace grew ever more reliant on the objective, dispassionate logic of machine thought. This reliance engendered a mode of existence where non-emotional and non-intuitive behavior became the norm, profoundly embedding the machine's logic into daily life and decision-making. The encroachment of this machine-driven rationality on human intuition and emotion set the stage for the ideological and physical conflicts that would later define the Butlerian Jihad. The dependency on thought machines redefined societal norms and human interactions. It sowed the seeds of discontent and resistance against the pervasive control of technology, leading to a pivotal moment in human history where the very essence of human thought and autonomy was contested. During the pre-jihad era, the Bene Gesserit order, like many other factions, succumbed to the pervasive influence of machine logic and dependency. Rational thought was prioritized in their educational systems, with the order's intuitive and ideological endeavors mainly relegated to seeding mythos across new colonies. This period saw the emergence of the Bene Gesserit creed of linked rationality, which underscored a disavowal of instinct-driven learning in favor of a more systematic, prolonged approach to knowledge acquisition and project planning, often spanning multiple generations. However, a pivotal realization shifted the Bene Gesserit's trajectory. The Mother House recognized that the reliance on machines was not just a matter of convenience or efficiency. It fundamentally altered the human condition. Machines were leading to a diminished human agency, reducing individuals to mere cogs in a system, and particularly affecting the Bene Gesserit's breeding program by negating the production of potential members with desirable traits. By enforcing selective breeding, the machines inadvertently created a class of non-intelligent work animals, beings who lacked the cognitive capacities that the Bene Gesserit valued and sought to cultivate. In response to this growing threat to human autonomy and the integrity of their order, the Bene Gesserit formulated a counter-strategy, encapsulated in what became known as the first lesson. This tenet, humans must never submit to animals, metaphorically framed the machine-dependent non-humans as lesser beings, underscoring the imperative to reclaim human primacy over machines. This ideological pivot marked the Bene Gesserit's transition from passive participation in a machine-dominated system to active resistance, advocating for the elimination of both the controlling machines and the subjugated, diminished humans they produced. In the aftermath of the jihad, the sisterhood took a decisive turn in its approach to breeding, consciously moving away from the impersonal methods of artificial insemination. They emphasized the nuanced complexity of human reproduction, which, in their view, transcended the mere combination of genetic material to encompass the intermingling of psyches. This belief, articulated in the declaration that breeding and capturing psyches could only be achieved through direct human interaction, marked a return to more traditional and intimate methods of lineage cultivation. The Summa, the Bene Gesserit's comprehensive repository of knowledge and doctrine, records that the order resumed its meticulous breeding program post-jihad, employing strategic marriages and selective concubinage. This careful orchestration of relationships allowed them to exert a subtle yet profound influence over the genetic and political landscapes of the emerging imperium. By managing the reproductive alliances of both major and minor houses, the sisterhood became a covert but formidable power broker, shaping the genetic destinies and consequently the political hierarchies of the time. This strategic manipulation and control of lineage not only solidified the Bene Gesserit's position within the societal structure of the Imperium, but also ensured the perpetuation of their desired traits and abilities across generations. Through these practices, the sisterhood balanced their philosophical and ethical stances with their long-term objectives, continuing to wield significant influence behind the galaxy's power dynamics. Consequently, after the dismantling of machine-based lie detection, the sisterhood found a new and vital role within the political structures of the galaxy. The sisterhood's expertise in truth-saying, honed through rigorous training and acute psychological insight, made them indispensable intermediaries in negotiations and deliberations across the Imperium. As mechanical lie detectors became obsolete, the ability to discern truth from falsehood through human skill became highly valued, embedding the Bene Gesserit deeply in the mechanisms of power. The pervasive lack of trust in post-jihad society, a situation that further elevated the importance of the Bene Gesserit's truth-sayers. Every central house sought their services, and eventually their influence extended to the Spacing Guild, thereby ensuring the sisterhood's presence in virtually all spheres of significant decision-making. Moreover, their openness about using the Gom Jabbar test, a lethal examination designed to separate the genuinely human from those deemed unworthy or machine-bred animals, cemented their role as guardians of a humanistic legacy. This test detected and excluded any remnants of the machine era's influence and allowed the sisterhood to fine-tune their breeding program. Public hostility towards the so-called machine breeds persisted for centuries, inadvertently granting the Bene Gesserit greater leeway to scrutinize their own lines for the heightened sensitivity and the potential emergence of the Kwisatz Haderach. The sisterhood represented a profoundly influential faction. Unlike the overtly power-seeking entities such as the Great Houses or the Emperor himself, the Bene Gesserit's pursuits were cloaked in the subtlety of their long-term agendas. Their primary goal was not to engage directly in the machinations of the Imperium, but rather to steer the course of human evolution towards their ultimate aim, the creation of the Kwisatz Haderach. From an external viewpoint, they could be perceived merely as advisors or consorts to the powerful. However, this surface-level interpretation belies the depth of their influence. Operating under the guise of religiosity and service, they infiltrated every stratum of society, from the lowliest servant quarters to the opulent halls of imperial power. Their method was one of quiet manipulation, using their skills in observation, psychological manipulation, and genetic engineering to direct the flow of human and political evolution subtly. The Missionaria Protectiva, one aspect of their complex operations, perfectly encapsulates their indirect control method. By implanting myths and prophecies across countless worlds, they created a framework that could later be exploited to their advantage, ensuring that a Bene Gesserit could always sway the local populations by fulfilling or manipulating these prophecies. This embedding of control mechanisms illustrates their disinterest in direct governance or overt power. Instead, they favored the shadows, where influence could be exerted without visibility. The Sisterhood's genetic manipulation spanned countless generations, weaving together the bloodlines of the most powerful families. They aimed to engineer a prophetic super being who could bridge space and time, offering them unprecedented control over cosmic affairs. Thus, the fabric of the Imperium's elite was unknowingly manipulated to serve this singular purpose. Ironically, their detachment from the day-to-day governance of the Imperium did not mean a lack of interest in political outcomes. Every political development was observed and often subtly influenced to ensure the stability and continuity necessary for their breeding program. They were players on a different board, one that transcended the immediate struggles for power and territory. The planned union between the offspring of Leto Atreides, the first, and Feyd-Rautha Harkonnen was meticulously orchestrated to awaken this supreme being. This child was expected to stand at the apex of human evolution, a messianic figure who would fulfill the deep-rooted prophecies of the Missionaria Protectiva and steer humanity on a course charted by the Bene Gesserit's hand. However, the best-laid plans of the Bene Gesserit were derailed by an act of maternal defiance. Jessica Atreides, imbued with the same training and discipline as her Bene sisters, chose love and personal desire over duty and destiny. Her decision to bear a son, Paul Atreides, instead of the intended daughter, tore up a decades-long strategy. Paul, emerging as the Kwisatz Haderach far ahead of the Bene Gesserit's schedule, represented both a monumental success and an unforeseen threat to their designs. This premature revelation of the Kwisatz Haderach, laden with promise and peril, plunged the Bene Gesserit into uncertainty. While Paul Atreides possessed the extraordinary abilities they had sought to harness, his allegiance lay beyond their control, challenging the foundations of their influence and questioning the infallibility of their plans. The adepts of this enigmatic order wielded abilities that stood unmatched across the cosmos, making them figures of awe and enigma. Their mastery over the body was absolute. A Bene Gesserit could command every muscle and nerve down to the smallest fiber, executing control that defied the limits of ordinary human experience. They were the ultimate practitioners of prana and bindu, ancient disciplines that melded physical prowess with mental acuity. One of the most fascinating aspects of their training was the art of oral analysis. With just a taste, a Bene Gesserit adept could decipher the composition of any substance, identifying ingredients and chemicals with meticulous precision. This skill was not just a parlor trick, but a tool of survival and analysis, sharpening their understanding of the world to a molecular level. But their mastery did not end with the external. Internally, they achieved a dominion over their organic and chemical processes that bordered on the miraculous. Immunity to poison was a mere baseline. A sister could manipulate her body's reactions to neutralize toxins, making lethal substances innocuous. This internal alchemy was a cornerstone of their ritual to ascend to Reverend Mother status, where the perilous water of life was transmuted from deadly poison to a source of profound enlightenment, unlocking the storied other memory. Their control also extended to their aging process, allowing them to slow their biological clock to a crawl. However, such a display was avoided to prevent drawing undue attention to their secretive order. Their prana bindu training allowed them to regulate bodily functions, blood flow, Body temperature, heart rate, and consciousness could be altered at will, equipping them to survive extreme conditions, evade captivity, or mimic death convincingly. Even in dire hunger or thirst, they could modulate their physiological needs. If cornered by fate to an inescapable demise, they possessed the ultimate escape, the power to end their lives by sheer will, halting their heart or ceasing brain function. Of their time, they were perhaps the most misunderstood of all the factions of the Imperium, often overlooked bar for their obvious skills offered to the great houses. They operated in shadow, and for millennia maintained the visages of wise women who counsel, rather than schemers on a galactic scale. This all-female order's secretive and influential nature has created diverse perceptions among the various factions that shape the galactic landscape. The great houses of the Landsraad, perennial contenders for power and influence, typically view the Bene Gesserit with guarded respect. The houses appreciate the advantages brought by the political acumen and the matrimonial alliances offered. However, there is an omnipresent unease regarding the sisterhood's deeper motives, especially given their penchant for manipulation and the secretive long-term goals they pursue. For these noble families, the Bene are indispensable yet potentially dangerous allies, capable of turning the tides of fortune with a whisper or a well-placed marriage. In contrast, the Spacing Guild, those masters of interstellar travel, engage with the Bene Gesserit in a strictly utilitarian fashion. Both entities recognize the practicality of maintaining a cooperative stance, though a clinical distance marks their interactions. The Guild's preoccupation with the control of spice and navigation supersedes deeper involvement in Bene Gesserit schemes unless these directly impact the stability of spice flow. The Fremen of Arrakis offer a unique perspective on these weirding women. Initially viewed with distrust as outsiders, the Fremen's attitude shifts dramatically following the arrival of Lady Jessica and Paul. Through Jessica's integration into Fremen society and the strategic use of prophecy via the Missionaria Protectiva, the Bene Gesserit managed to weave themselves into the Fremen's destiny. The reverence for Paul as the Mahdi ultimately reflects the profound, albeit complex, influence exerted by the sisterhood among the desert people. Among the general populace of the galaxy, the sisterhood is often shrouded in myth and superstition. Commonly called witches, their reputed abilities to manipulate thoughts and actions contribute to a widespread aura of mystery and fear. This perception underscores the sisterhood's pervasive, though often invisible, reach throughout the known universe. In closing, we must acknowledge the saga of the Bene Gesserit with its labyrinthine maneuvers through history. While today's lecture has endeavored to chart the significant epochs in the Bene Gesserit's storied existence, from their shadowy origins to their pivotal role in the rise and reign of Emperor Paul Muad'Dib, we have merely skimmed the surface of their profound and multifaceted influence on the galaxy. The Bene Gesserit are not just witnesses to history, but active and often pivotal participants in shaping interstellar destiny. Their ability to adapt, survive, and occasionally thrive in the shifting sands of power and ideology presents a fascinating study of resilience, foresight, and the indomitable will to shape the future. As historians, we have the privilege and the responsibility to continue this exploration, to uncover and interpret the layers of their legacy, ensuring that the story of the Bene Gesserit remains a vibrant and essential part of our complex universe.